Hey everyone, I am excited to be here. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera on in 1 second. I just want to make sure that if you have if you have anything loud in your background, just keep it off. I'm going to keep everything on private, but I just want to make sure because if we do go into some interaction, I definitely want to make sure that everyone can hear you. So I'm going to go ahead and allow the camera. So I believe that, there we go. We have the webcam starting. So we're going to be talking about Mother's Day and why it is so hard to interact and to have our experiences when we've had either our mother who has passed away, or maybe we had an abusive situation with our mom. And that's important. It's very important. So let me just move this around a little bit. So we're going to talk about, look how I'm wearing pearls and a flannel. This is a day, right? So it was really cold. Let me just explain this outfit, okay? Because this is not me trying to be edgy and different. I was dressy today and I came home and I was cold, so I put a flannel on. So anyway, okay, so we're going to be talking about a very real issue of when you are struggling with Mother's Day. Now, you could have also, I need to mention this also, for some women who are struggling with Mother's Day, it's because maybe you have had an abortion or a child pass away, or you're struggling right now, you're a single mom. There's a lot of reasons why we might have these struggles. So I want to talk about, and I have my notes here to make sure, these are all off of my blogs, everything that I'm talking about here. So I'm going into some more detail, but you can always reach them at michellepava.com and just put category mothers, and you're going to see a whole slew of articles that I wrote about how to deal with Mother's Day and some different issues that we might have with our moms. So anyway, we know that Anna Jarvis was the woman who actually started Mother's Day. So people say it's a Hallmark holiday, or different holidays are Hallmark holidays. Well, this is not. This is a holiday that she put together. She started working towards peace between mothers and soldiers and in helping bring peace. So Mother's Day is actually really about peacefulness. And one way that we can work on our relationships, especially if you have had a tough relationship with your mom. So we're going to go into if you've had a struggle with your mother, whether she is alive or she has passed away. We're going to talk about that. So if you've struggled with your mom, maybe she was neglectful, maybe she was an absentee mom, maybe she was indirectly neglectful or indirectly abusive. So that means maybe she knew that there was abuse happening. Maybe she kind of turned a blind eye to it. Maybe she couldn't handle it. Maybe your mom was someone who was involved in alcoholism or in drug addiction or any kind of addiction. Even food addiction, addiction to love and new relationships, and going from relationship to relationship, or maybe picking the men that were not good in your life. Maybe your dad wasn't good in your life. So all of these different things we tend to blame on mom, right? And so there's this, we all know that Freud was always focused on, it goes back to your mom, goes back to your mom. So part of me really feels like maybe Freud had some mom issues, but the reality is a lot of our idea of what is truth and how to cope does come often first from our mother, and then it goes into the rest of our family unit. So you could have had a lot of different struggles, and you could feel bitterness right now, or a sense of, Mother's Day is coming, or anything that's revolving around a holiday with the idea of people talking about their mom, right? And you could feel a sense of anger or emptiness. I was talking to someone recently, and she brought up a really good point, and I've brought this up with clients in the past, but when you are told, if you had a mother that you've needed to distance with, okay, if you needed to distance because she's just toxic in your life, or you don't want her around your children for whatever reason, and you might feel guilt, you might feel anger, but when someone says to you, oh, it's your mom, you only have one mom, don't worry about it, or you're making a big deal over it, you could feel so bitter and you could feel so angry. And you have to understand that people will say those kind of things and it doesn't make it right. And I'm not saying that you should okay it, but you need to turn, just a deaf ear to it. You just need to understand that you don't owe them an explanation on why you are or are not speaking to your mother. You don't owe anyone an explanation. This is your life and you need to do what you need to do. So now you may need to see a therapist. You may need to work with someone. But in general, there's also that idea that you should never be around anyone that is toxic. And that doesn't mean except for your mom because she's your mom. That doesn't matter at all. So let's look at some of the ways that we can work through the healing process. So understand that your mother is your primal force of life. Okay. She is what brought you life. So if you can take yourself back to when you're a child or just to the idea of children, you're an infant and you are depending, evolutionary wise, you are depending on your mother. So even though you might be held by nurses and aunts and uncles and other people who are feeding you with a bottle, evolutionary wise, it's all about your mom. So when we are looking at what creates attachment in a mother and a child so that the child learns to attach to other people, they actually call breastfeeding attaching, right? So think about if you're holding a baby and the breast area is about yay high and the baby is looking at you, that's about 8 to 12 inches of space between you and the baby. So when you have that space right there, this is where the baby can actually see more and will tend to try to focus. And usually when you're holding a baby, you're speaking low, you're being very nurturing. And so that's what's supposed to happen. Now, if you have a mom who's in addiction or is negative or self-centered or any of those things, even early on, mom might be holding you but not looking at you. Mom might be on her phone scrolling. Mom might be looking at TV. Mom might be doing a million other things but not really focusing on that attachment process. So if she's not really focusing on the attachment process, even if she doesn't mean to be neglectful, she's neglectful. So sometimes we make excuses. Well, my mom didn't know this, or my mother had a hard life. And it's not about blaming or finger pointing right now. This is about understanding that it doesn't matter if your mom or if your mother was well-meaning and had a really hard life and just hurt you a little bit, she still hurt you a little bit. Like, it's okay to own that. And you're not a victim if you own these types of things, okay? You know what? I can actually see myself right now with this pearl necklace on. This just has to go. Okay. So, and oddly enough, this was my mother's pearl necklace. And we're going to be talking about the focus of honoring your mom if she has passed away. But right now, sorry, mom, this is going. Anyway, so let's talk more about, how to deal with the idea of this is your primal space, right? So it's your primal space and you're trying to have attachment, and maybe your childhood, maybe the infant time was okay. Maybe it was later on that you had neglect or abuse or the blind eye, like I said, to abuse that might have been happening to you. How do you cope now as an adult? Like, how do you look back and make it right, especially if you're the kind of person who is now a mom yourself and you're thinking, wow, you could really hurt someone and you would never do that to someone. How do you get to that place where you can just honor that your mom had her path and it wasn't right for you, but at the same time, you don't have to be angry about it. So there's forgiveness, and we're going to talk about forgiveness in a little bit because we do need to get there. But first, we're going to go into all the different pain points that you might be feeling. So that is if you had, the understanding that you might be struggling right now. If you're someone that had a child pass away or you had an abortion, and even if you knew that you needed to have that abortion, or even if that child passed away and you knew it was the best thing because the child was in so much pain, no matter what the situation, you're still going to have some pain there. And if you look back on that time And I was talking to a client about this as well. If you look back on that time and the decision was really there because you felt overwhelmed when in case of an abortion, you felt overwhelmed, or you felt like you would not be a good mother, or maybe subconsciously you just felt like you were not ready to be a mother, that you could maybe hurt the child, or that maybe subconsciously you were hurt at some point and you just don't want to feel that you want to spread that around. You want to protect as much as possible. And so you might have lived in fear or in lack of trust. And that's very possible that you might have felt those things and even still feel them. It doesn't negate that you won't still have some pain. So depending on where you are in those pain points, you might have also had a mom that passed away, and you might have had a great relationship with your mom. So whether or not your mother was neglectful or not, or painful or not, whether she was alive or she passed away, or is alive and passed away, you're still going to deal with those areas. But what if everything was great and you really have no ill feelings towards your mom at all, and you feel like she did a fabulous job? And then what then? So that's where I am, where my mother had passed away. Now we're talking at least 20 years ago. And so what happens then? What happens? How do you deal with that? And Mother's Day makes it very hard, because you might have, if you were someone who had a great relationship with your mom and you did a lot with her, especially on Mother's Day, you had rituals and ceremony, then you might come across Mother's Day and feel a little bit of a void, even if you have a family, even if you have a very full life. And so what you do is you take some memorial steps, and through time, you don't need to do them as big, depending on where you are. I shouldn't say through time, because you could go 25, 30 years and still really be suffering, or you could go 1 or 2 years and be pretty good, okay? So it depends on where you are. But one thing for everyone to do, if there's any kind of loss, so whether it was a loss of a child, whether it's a loss of a mother, however that is I always say plant a garden. Even if you're not a gardener, plant a garden, plant a tree, do something where you're taking one energy and turning it into another energy that is life form. So, and something that somebody asked me today is, okay, well, what if we move? What if I plant a garden or a tree and I move? Then what? But you honor that you did plant the tree and that the tree is growing or the garden is growing. And then a question was, well, what if I plant this tree and the tree dies? And then with that is, it just dies then. That's okay. You still went through the intention of creating that garden. You still can try to plant more trees or more gardens. See, that's the beauty of this, is that when you go through some ceremony or ritual, it doesn't have to be a one and done. You know, if you want, you can plant a garden and every single Mother's Day, add some flowers to it, or plant trees, or donate somewhere that is going to plant trees and flowers, or raise butterflies, or whatever it is that you love. Okay. You might, maybe another idea to honor someone who has passed away, whether it is a child or the woman in your life that was signified as your mother, whether or not she was a birth mother or not, or maybe the birth mother and the person who raised you as her own, is maybe that you would perhaps use Kiva, Kiva, and donate to some of the women organizations or women in need that are there. There's so many people that are in need that are on Kiva, which is a nonprofit that you can donate to. So there's lots of different ways that you can honor someone who has passed away. You can create a poem and frame the poem. You can, even if you're not a poet, you don't have to be good at anything in your eyes. You don't have to be talented, and you're probably way more talented and amazing than you think you are. But that's another way that you can look at ways that you can honor, another way, artwork, another way, music, another way, just sharing with friends and family, maybe just writing stories about your mother. Now, it doesn't mean that if you had a mother that was abusive, there's probably some good memories there, right? So you might want to take some of those good memories and write them down and just put that energy into that. So if you need to work on forgiveness, a way that we can work on forgiveness is to first honor that you are a part of your mother, whether or not you agree with her lifestyle or how she parented. your DNA is made of her DNA and her cells and her body. So if you really dislike her, you will, evolutionary wise, subconsciously, you will be negating part of you. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to shame any part of you because you have anger towards her or hurt towards her. And it's also important so that if you have had a tough time with your mom, whether it's that you lost her young or that you had abuse, especially if you had abuse, as a woman especially, you are more likely to suffer from depression, from anxiety, to be more frazzled. So if you're, let's just put it this way, if you right now are in any kind of addiction and you're actively in addiction, you're a mom, your children are more apt to be diagnosed with bipolar, with ADHD, with other types of emotional turmoil because they are reacting to symptoms, and they're reacting not just to your symptoms, but your mother and her mother and her mother. So it's sort of whisper down the lane where until you really focus on being a full throttle, working on your individuality mom, you're going to maybe have some problems with your own children, and you're going to then turn it from dealing with your mom to dealing with your children, and then you don't have that identity. And that's hard. And that can go for anyone. You don't have to be in addiction for that. It just means that you might be getting lost in the shuffle. So here's what I mean by that. So let's just say you're not in addiction and you were abused by your mom or abused by your dad, and your mom had a blind eye to it and didn't really stick up for you, didn't help you, didn't save you from that abuse. Or she neglected you, or she was an absentee mom. So that means a mom who might have been traveling or working a lot, and she wasn't really there focused on you. Now, let me tell you, this also goes for moms who are stuck on their phone. I mean, there are a lot of women right now that cannot sit down without having their phone out. And they will even sit with the children, with the family, and maybe everyone's going to be watching a television show or a movie, and everyone's talking. And there's that person, that mom, who is online and usually social networking. She's escaping through social networking. So all of this is, you need to look at the escapism. If mom is escaping with overwork, if mom is escaping with technology, or going out at night, or kind of being angry at herself for making decisions that she doesn't feel were right at the time. These are all areas that you can improve upon. If I'm speaking in a way that you're thinking, this could be me a little bit, you can improve upon this minute. Make Mother's Day, if you're in a situation that you might be causing some turmoil without realizing it and feeling helpless, get a therapist, start working on allowing yourself to honor that you could be struggling and you could be wrong. Okay. Because honestly, a lot of times people come to therapy and they'll say, I'm not happy because of X, Y, and Z. And they're very outwardly focused in the beginning. And they might even say, I've been to therapy a lot and I have some issues going on and I know my issues, but yet you notice maybe that they're not willing to look at themselves and really make changes with themselves. So take this moment right now and really look at, are there changes that you can make right now that you could be a better parent? Now, sometimes being a better parent means loosening the apron strings, So if you're someone who, I'm going to give you one really common dynamic. So if you're someone who was neglected, you tend to over protect and mesh with your children. This is a common theme. I'm not saying it happens to everyone, but it is a common theme. So if that's happening, then you tend to, these are the people who really enmesh. They're living through their children. They want to be their children's best friends sometimes. They know everything that's happening in their children's social lives. They ask a lot of questions about their social life. You might be a parent that even has your child in bed all the time. And that might actually be a way that you're actually avoiding intimacy with your husband. It might not even be about the child, but now the child is a tool for creating whatever it is that you need in your life. So I know there's a whole camp of people that think that family sleeping is great and wonderful, but you know that you're truly being a family sleeper if everybody's in bed with you, okay? If it's just one child in bed with you, then that child is more of the child that you're utilizing maybe for some other reason that really doesn't have anything to do with the child. And so the best thing for the child is to learn more independence. You don't have to worry that putting them to bed and having them cry is neglect. And I know a lot of you who do this do feel this deep down because you were a child who was crying and ignored. So this hits you when your child is unhappy because you think that there is no gray area. It's all very black and white. It's either that you're loving them or you're neglecting them, that you don't see that gray area. And as a woman, if you had that with your mom, that she was neglecting you, believe it or not, you actually will have that with the men in your life. So if you were neglected by your mother, you will be attracted to someone, and then you will create an environment where you neglect them, or that you seek out someone that neglects you, or they're not neglecting you and you're not necessarily neglecting them, but you're actually putting walls up. So you're either overly going towards a man and really wanting every bit of him and feeling very clingy and very that you need him, or you're just saying like, you know what, you're not floating my boat, and you're kind of putting those walls up. And it's such a common theme, and I've heard it a lot, and it's really common. So don't think that you're alone in anything that I'm saying right now. You're not alone. More people than you could possibly imagine have gone through these very things and are going through these and are in therapy offices everywhere talking about these kind of problems. So women tend to share when it comes to, oh, I was betrayed, or, I'm emotional about XYZ, but we often don't really get into conversations about our moms. We might say, yeah, my mom and I are not close, or yeah, my mom's not in my life. But we don't go into details about how that might affect us and what it's doing to us on a daily basis. And we do not see the correlation between our mother and how she treated us and then how we're treating other people, or what we're accepting from other people. You know, if your mother was angry at you all the time and treated you like you were less than because there was abuse, whether by her or by somebody else, and just an angry person, you tend to go through life feeling like you are not worthy. And that's absolutely not the case. So I just want to get into some other details here that I don't want to forget. So if you had a narcissistic mother or a mom who was very grandiose in any way, then you may feel like you are not valued, that you're never enough. And because she might have made you feel that way directly or indirectly. A lot of the narcissistic moms are very into working out and very into like looking a certain way, and they're full makeup at the gym and the whole thing. Now, I'm not saying that everyone who wears full makeup at the gym is narcissistic. And a lot of people think that narcissism is somebody who's boastful. And so narcissism is not just about being boastful. It is also about being very victim-y. So if you had a mom that was kind of poor me all the time and very judging people and everybody's hurting her and all of that, that is a form of narcissism. As long as the attention is on her, then it's not really about you. So that's a form of you dealing with a narcissistic mother or a grandiose mother. You also are going to be struggling with getting out of the past. Now, I want you to get out of the past, but I don't want you to do it by denial or repression. And a lot of women do that. They kind of feel like, well, time has gone by, so I should be better. And then they're not. So I want you to definitely seek out a therapist, but I want you to, and when you seek out a therapist, you have to understand it can take 3 to 6 sessions just to be able to break through some of your walls that you do have up. Everybody has walls. You and the therapist have to get to know each other. So don't expect that you go to 2 or 3 sessions and you're not fixed yet. It doesn't work like that. This was a process. It didn't happen to you overnight, and it's not going to go through a healing process overnight. Okay. And so even if you get energy healing and all of that stuff that feels like it might be a quick fix, they are usually very temporary, and you still need to get some other help because it's not just an energy issue. We are thinking human beings, and we could have energy shifts all over the place, but we're still going to behave in a certain way, okay? So until you actually change some habits, and I'm not saying anything against energy healing, I'm all for it, but you also need something that's a little bit more concise and dealing with the actual issues. And if you're drawn to some of the energy healing that's not about talking about your issues, you might be avoiding the actual issue, because isn't it easier just to have an energy healing or any of those alternative types of things where you're not actually looking at what's truly happening within you, because you might be afraid and you might be looking for answers and comfort. And a lot of times we are in comforting types of careers if we have had abuse, neglect, or even later in life, rape or assault. So if you are someone who is in nursing, or you read tarot cards, or you're in any energy healing or therapy or coaching, it's probable that you might have had some kind of pain in your life. And that's what drew you to wanting to help others, because you understood the pain and you have a lot of empathy. So in Mother's Day, when we want to look at Mother's Day, we have to look at, we are all a beautiful sisterhood, actually, and we can help each other. So if you have good friends and you had, a tough time with your mom, maybe get together with friends. It might not be exactly on Mother's Day, but maybe the eve of, or the day after, or the weekend after. Do something where you're really honoring each other. And even if you had a really great relationship with your mom, you need to honor that maybe she's gone. And if she's not gone and she's alive and you're having some struggles, sometimes it's just a struggle over whose house to go to for Mother's Day dinner. That could be very big, because it's really not about the dinner, right? It's about who's more important. And so if you think about that dynamic of, okay, do I go to my husband's or my partner's mother, or do I go to my mother? Then you're making if you're causing a rift with your children, now, of course, there has to be some equality there, right? Equanimity. But if there's some level of equanimity and you're still feeling slighted because you feel like you are not being put up high enough on a pedestal, look at what's really happening. Is it really about the dinner? Is it really about that? Is celebrating really about you making a dinner or them taking you to dinner? What can be done to make everyone happy? Always approach these conflicts with a sense of empathy and caring, because if you don't, it's going to be a shit show. To be honest, it's going to be a shit show of your emotions, and that's not good. So I want you to also think about this. If you were, and I'm going to move these notes out of the way so I can lean. If you were in a situation where you were maybe you didn't have much structure at all, your mom was sort of doing her own thing, or you had so much structure. One really great way for you to honor Mother's Day and yourself and the cells of your mom that are within you, or the energy of the women that took care of you that might have been abusive, you still have to honor that. Any good that you could possibly glean out of these human beings, even if that is they were mentally ill and they really have no clue how horrible they were, and I pity the day that they have to go to the Golden Gates type of thing. You still have to honor that these people energetically or cellularly and energetically were a part of you. So one great way to do that is to think about having a time that you can have really fun structure. So maybe that's just taking yourself out to eat or going out with a good friend and just enjoying that time, but honoring enough, being open enough with your friend and saying, hey, you know what? I'm doing this not just to hang out with you. You're awesome, but it's part of something I need to do because I need to be in a space where it's structured because I didn't have that as a kid as much, or I had too much of it, and fun because I had some abuse or I had some problems growing up and with my mom. And I just want to be with another female and honor this mother energy within me. And even if you don't have children, it's about your mother energy within you, and just go out to eat and just enjoy each other and just, and make that intention of healing. So I think we're about done here. I'm going to be adding some of my blogs so that when you get this replay, I'm going to send some links to the blogs, and then we're going to be able to have a discussion if you want. I'm not going to go live right now because honestly, we are already a half an hour into it and I don't want to have a big discussion, but we could definitely have a discussion on Facebook. So I will be reposting this, and I want to honor everyone here who is a mother, and everyone, of course, you've had a mother. So I want to just honor everybody for Mother's Day. I am very blessed that my mom was awesome. My grandmother on my dad's side, not so much. But I honor her too, because it's all a learning experience, right? And the grandmother that I never met, who was my mother's mom, my mother was put in an orphanage, so my mom only knew her mom up to the age of 5. So I kind of feel like her energy, I feel blessed that her energy and her cells are within me. And I just am very happy about Mother's Day because I get to work with women all of the time. And even if you had moms that were really struggling in any way, they are what they are. You know, they're trying their best, believe it or not. And I've talked to a lot of moms who really have been in bad situations, and they really did do the best that they could at the time. I've never really met anyone who just did this on purpose. And so even if you had a narcissistic mom who really appears to be this powerful, horrible woman, she's probably pretty injured, or she was pretty injured. So you have to sort of honor that, okay, you know what, these people all have issues, and I'm just working on my thing and being the best person I can be, or the best mother I could be, whether it's a mother to a little dog or an iguana or children, or just a good friend to your friends, whatever that female energy is to you. And I just want you to have the courage to heal throughout the holiday, and to honor yourself through the holiday, honor your spirit through the holiday. Say a little prayer or a meditation for the female ancestors of the past, because you are the accumulation, and I say this a lot, you are the accumulation of many, many generations of women. And so not all of them were perfect, and some of them were saints, and some of them were sinners, and most of them were both. So, and it's probably how you are too. So let's just honor that we are doing the best that we can as women, and be female role models to the women who need us, even if they're older than you, even if they're your peers or colleagues. You know, be that person. It doesn't mean over nurture or overstep boundaries. It just means to allow your feminine energy to be there so that you can help to heal the entire sisterhood, to raise that consciousness level up, to raise that frequency up. So thank you so much. Namaste and blessings.